probably one of my biggest, like, oh my goodness, things in this world is that tenants just sign their new lease. Like they don't even look at it. They don't even bat an eye. It's just like, oh, my lease is up and they sign it. And
Yeah.
it can save them so much by like just reviewing their lease, making sure that it's current with the fair market value. And also, like if you were just with that landlord for 10 years and you're signing a new lease, you also deserve some tenant improvements. You deserve some free month rent. Like you deserve these things because if you were to leave and not renew that lease, that landlord is going to give all of that to a brand new tenant.
Welcome to Getting Down to Business. On today's show, we have a very special guest joining the call. Connie Aliverto has helped the Hindley Burgmaier Group with their real estate needs for over a year now. Connie is an expert in business management with a focus on the tenant side of commercial real estate. Connie is going to share her experiences on working with tenant buyers and give us some great insight into how she helps her clients move forward in their business. Ready, set, let's get down to business.
Connie, thanks so much for being here. It's really nice to meet you. This is my first time seeing you. So out of everybody here, I always know the least. So you can explain to me because I don't know anything about anything. I'm still learning. And so you can just talk
That's
to me
easy.
like, yeah, like as if I'm, calling you up for the first time and I'm just wanting to know, hey, I picked up your card. I'd like
Yeah.
to know a little bit about you and what you do. So can you kind of tell me who you are and what you do for Car?
Yeah, very, very good. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to see this kind of hit the ground because I know Kelly and I have worked together for over a year now, and this has always been one of the things that they've wanted to get going. So I'm happy to see it coming to fruition. That's great. Um, but yeah, I'll give a little background of myself and how I came into real estate. I've been doing real estate for 4 years. Two of those years were residential, and then I stumbled into commercial. And there's no looking back. I will never touch a residential transaction again. Commercial is definitely my love. But I've just always had a thing for business. So I way back went to school for management and got into the day spa industry. And I did that for about 20 years. And that like I did every single thing in the day spa industry from um, locker room tenant to skincare specialist to director. And then it just moved into more of the business side of it. And I helped conceptualize, direct, operate everything day spas, which really gave me most of my business experience. And I was able to work in the commercial real estate side on the tenant side, helping to um, get my owner a space. And so I was familiar with LOIs and how it felt like coming in and leasing a space. Um, and so I just became very interested in real estate as a whole, got my real estate license. And so now being on the flip side of helping clients to negotiate those terms that I was, trying to help my owner accept, has really come full circle. And I do most of my business in the healthcare industry. So I'm able to really relate to my clients on the operations side also. I understand a lot of what they're looking for. It's very similar to the day spa world, but as far as, you know, what they need as far as space, their appointments, you know, if they're going into an expansion or opening multiple locations, I can really help guide them along in that. So I think that personally sets me apart from other real estate agents because I've been on the flip side of it. But when I stumbled upon Carr, I really liked their business plan. Carr is the leading commercial real estate for healthcare services in the nation for the tenant buyer side. So that's what makes us very different. We do not do any listings, so it eliminates any conflict of interest. It also really allows us to become experts in the tenant buyer world. So we're not, you know, in everything. We are really drilled down very specifically to represent tenant and buyers, which helps us to negotiate stronger for our tenant buyers. We're that much more um, just knowledgeable in that space. Um, but we're able to help from marketing their needs. So I have a ton of different clients or peers, I should say, where I'm able to find them off-market spaces. I'm able to negotiate their lease. I'm able to analyze their current lease so they're more prepared when they have to renew their lease. And then, of course, for expansion, startups, if they're ready to move beyond the tenant role and become a landlord or own their real estate, I'm able to help them find the correct location, negotiate the terms. I have a really great team of experts to help guide them through any process, attorneys, CPA. And that's kind of how I stumbled upon working with Hindley Burgmaier. You know, Eric Burgmaier is like the CPA to use as a dentist and doctor. So that's really where that partnership came from. But I surround myself with a really strong group to help guide my clients through the whole process as well. So yeah, that's really a little bit about me and Carr and kind of what sets us apart.
So you mentioned LOI. Now I've been listening. So does that mean letter of intent?
Letter of intent, yeah. Ideally, with my clients, if I can get with somebody a year before they're ready to make a move, that's amazing. Because I'm able to really understand what their needs are, really get into the market and really strategize for them. However, if there ever is a need, I've found a client, a space just recently. I had the letter of intent written out, accepted, lease signed within 12 weeks. So if somebody is in a position where they just need to make the move, or sometimes they have what they thought was going to be their move and then something falls through and now they've like terminated their current lease, the one they thought was coming through doesn't come through. And so I can act quick. However, of course, a year, 6 months is really going to put us in a better position to strategize and negotiate and really find a great spot for people. But that's really where it starts. And with the letter of intent for leasing, I'm able to we negotiate the terms that are going to go in the lease. So it's very straightforward. We negotiate, of course, the base rate. We're going to negotiate any tenant improvements that the landlord will give to the tenant to move in. We will negotiate the rate escalation, so how much it's going to increase each year so that you don't get any crazy surprises later on down the road. We negotiate free rent, and then there's negotiation between when the lease starts, so that's when you get the key, versus when the rent starts. So there's lease commencement and there's rent commencement. So we negotiate some free months of rent in there so that you have a chance to get started, whether it's a build out, whether it's just some fresh paint and, you know, whatever needs to be done to the space, but we'll negotiate some of that time to be free from the landlord so that you have a great startup for success. And then on the purchase side, pretty much the same thing. We're going to negotiate the price for sure, the inspection period, what we are going to ask from the sellers as far as, you know, land survey or environmental survey, that kind of stuff. So we'll negotiate all of that in the letter of intent. And then from there, once the letter of intent is agreed upon between the tenant buyer and the seller landlord, then it goes into either the lease or the purchase agreement. But it covers all of the basics that are going to go into those documents.
Obviously, when the dental practice goes on sale, on the market, there's the person that's buying the practice, but then they could also buy the building too, right? Is that
Right.
pretty common? Do you see that happening more than not? Or is it
Yeah, so buyers,
usually...
in my experience, buyers want to buy the real estate. It's not a deal breaker if there is a practice that is for sale and it's a lease. It's definitely not a deal breaker, but a lot of times I see dentists that are ready and in the position to purchase a practice, they also want the real estate. It's just a great investment. It's a great asset to have, and there's a lot of tax benefits to it and future benefits to owning the real estate. However, they would rather have a healthy practice to sell. And if it's a lease, it's a lease, which is great. And so in that instance, if they go in, they buy the practice and it's a lease, I can easily just step in and help the buyer negotiate the new lease with the landlord. The landlord is usually thrilled because they have one tenant that's leaving the business. And so for them to get a new lease right away in a dental space is great for the landlord. So we can usually negotiate very good terms. Otherwise, the landlord doesn't know when it's going to get filled, who it's going to get filled by. Are they going to have to make it into a different type of business? There's so many possibilities for the landlord. So for them to get a new dentist just right in there is great for them. On the real estate side, I can step in and help negotiate the purchase price and then get the purchase agreement together for the seller and the buyer.
I'm just curious, you've talked about car, you've talked about, kind of like steps that you take. Some of this stuff, I'll be honest, when you start talking about rents and leases and just all these different things, I just go, wow, thank God somebody else is handling that, because that would make me, I'm just not trained for it, obviously, but that would just make me go crazy. So how do you interact with the Hindley Burgmaier group? What's usually the first touch point for you? I would imagine Kelly is the one who usually reaches out to you.
Yeah, it's Kelly and I, and we reach out to each other. One of the main ways I'm able to help Hindley Burgmaier is I work with tenant buyers. So all of my clients are buyers. Hindley Burgmaier has a lot of sellers. So I'm able to really assist and bring buyers that may be interested in the practices that they are selling. So that's probably our biggest way that we work together. And then there's been other times where there's a practice that they're selling. I have nothing to do with it. And they need the lease to be taken care of with the landlord. So I'm able to step in with the buyer, negotiate the new lease terms, get the lease going, and we get them done together so that the lease and the practice close on the same day. So everything is, the last thing you want is to have the lease negotiated, fully executed 2 weeks prior, and then something happened with the practice sell. Or vice versa, the practice goes through its purchase, but this new person doesn't technically have access to that space. So it's important for us to work together and get them done pretty simultaneously.
You do something else for us that really helps Rachel with the valuation. And we've been talking a lot about due diligence and valuation process. And a lot of times Rachel reaches out to you to help us. And there's a separate capacity that you help us with.
Yeah, I'm able to help them with the valuation side of it because I'm able to give Rachel the fair market value price, whether it's purchase price or the leasing price. So they're able to work that accurately into the valuations.
You concur, Rachel?
I have to say it. Y'all are so good.
So that's all based on like the numbers that you're crunching?
Yeah, and well, in the valuation process, we have to represent in the valuation a fair market value rent expense. And because, like Connie said, a lot of practice owners also own the property, they may not be paying themselves fair market value rent. And so in order to represent a correct rent expense going forward, I need to know what that fair market value rent is, and I reach out to Connie for that.
What is maybe the number one problem that you help your clients solve? What would you say that is?
Well, with the transition piece, I would say the number one problem is making sure that they are approved for the real estate and that goes through smoothly, that whole transaction. So if they're purchasing the real estate, it's putting them really, one, making sure they're purchasing the real estate at the correct price. It's not overpriced, underpriced. So I'm able to negotiate the price of the building to make sure they're getting it at what it's going to appraise at. But secondly, it's really getting them with the right people. The correct attorney is huge. So many people have like a friend that's an attorney or, cousin, Uncle Tony, someone that's an attorney, but it's so important to use a real estate attorney, an attorney that specializes in asset purchase agreements, because yes, an attorney can read the language and absolutely understand and guide them more than you and I can, but like a divorce attorney and a real estate attorney, two very different things. And you're purchasing most of the time a building that's $1 million or more. You do not want to you do not want to go anywhere else with a real estate attorney. So that's very important. So that's huge. And then it's the getting them with the title company. And I think from that point, my biggest value is I become the time manager and I manage the ball and make sure everybody knows what's happening with the real estate, where it is with title, where it is with lending, and where it is with the attorneys, and making sure that it's a smooth process, because there's a lot of moving parts. So it's very easy for things to get lost in the movement of everything. And then on the leasing side, I think the biggest problem is them getting what they deserve as a new tenant, because the landlord is feeling like, oh, okay, it's just the business continuing. It is, but also it's a new tenant. So if the current tenant is selling the practice and they've been there 20 years, well, it's only right that the landlord gives them some tenant improvements, some new paint, new carpet, like whatever needs. I mean, wear and tear on a building is big, and that's the landlord's responsibility. So I'm able to really make sure the new tenant is protected and gets what is deserving to them.
So you aren't recommending that clients call up Saul Goodman and help them with their
Yeah, don't do
their
it.
asset
Uncle-
purchase.
Right.
Uncle
You're gonna
Vinny.
you're gonna have to give us some good attorney referrals. Maybe we can have them on the show at some point.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
would be really cool. Or maybe we can have you back to do a collab in the future, how you guys interact. You touched on your solution about being a time manager. So, we have identified, one of the problems that you help solve as far as, getting approved for loans and things like that. The solution as far as, and you also mentioned title companies. So yeah, just can you touch a little bit more on the solution that you bring to the table for your
I mean,
clients?
my lifeline is networking. So that's like what I do. I meet people, I build relationships, and then I connect them where necessary. So I have several lenders. So if one lender can't help, I have so many lender partners that are somebody's going to be able to help. And also I can help regardless. So my most recent lease that I closed on is a 10-year lease. This client had no money and was not in the best financial situation. So we couldn't get any lending done. I was able to find her a landlord, explain the business plan to him. The space that we were trying to get has been empty for quite a while. Landlord wants an empty space. So we were able to get this landlord on board and work in the entire funding for the entire business into the lease. She's walking into a brand new building. He's building it out. He's leasing it to her and offering her working capital to get the business going. There's never any problem that I'm not willing to work towards and keep going. What is it taking from me? A few phone calls, emails, connections, you know what I mean? There's always somewhere else to look. And that was like the perfect scenario. And she had worked with other brokers. I mean, it was really a dead end for a few months, but we kept going. And so now she'll be moving into her new space and brand new business, everything. And
That's a huge
by the
payoff.
lease. Yeah.
Huge
It's
payoff.
all supported by the lease.
All that work you did, and now this person has a new building to operate out of. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. So what would you say is something that you figured out now that you didn't know, that you wish you knew when you started 2 years ago?
I feel like my number one thing is giving myself credit for all that I know, because I did a lot of training, in real estate. I do so much. I watch so many trainings and seminars just to keep with it. And it's funny, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I always think like everybody knows what I know. I don't self credit for like, oh wait, I really am like an expert at what I do, and not everybody knows everything. Like, I mean, for instance, probably one of my biggest, like, oh my goodness, things in this world is that tenants just sign their new lease. Like, they don't even look at it. They don't even bat an eye. It's just like, oh, my lease is up, and they sign it. And it can save them so much by like just reviewing their lease, making sure that it's current with the fair market value. And also, like, if you were just with that landlord for 10 years and you're signing a new lease, you also deserve some tenant improvements. You deserve some free rent. Like you deserve these things because if you were to leave and not renew that lease, that landlord is going to give all of that to a brand new tenant. That's probably my biggest, like, just building that confidence of understanding, like, oh my God, I do have so much knowledge that can help people better position themselves and save themselves a lot of money through their real estate of their business.
Okay, you did just share a recent story with us about the lady that couldn't get any funding. She couldn't get any loans. She had no money. You made some calls. You worked on it. You got it figured out. Now she's in a new building. That's awesome. Are there any other experiences where maybe you helped a client avoid, a potential pitfall? You just shared the one on kind of capitalizing on an opportunity. You did
Yeah.
the work. You got through, you solved the problem pretty skillfully. Have there ever been situations where, you're working with a client and you just see, uh-oh, this doesn't look good, or
Yeah.
Connie, do you talk about the one that you sold the practice to that nobody wanted to touch?
That was a tough one. And
Yeah.
it was a dental practice, and it was the practice and the real estate. Well, the owners of the practice had kind of already, like, they took a lot of steps ahead from what they should have. So they were moving out of state. So they were starting to slow their practice down. So they were working very minimal. They also had like a new baby that was born. It was just all of this stuff that was impacting their current business. So it wasn't the thriving business that was on paper anymore. Like they had a great business there, but they had already started to wind it down and kind of jump ahead. And they had, I think, one, possibly two deals that almost went through. So they were already like counting their chickens way before they hatched, and both deals fell through. It was not a good situation. And they had already started building their new location in another state. So it needed to be sold. Nobody wanted it because it was already slowing down as far as patients and stuff. And yeah, I just showed I was working with a buyer that was looking, actually, she was looking to lease. They have a business and they were just expanding and they were looking to lease. And I just threw it out to them like, hey, I don't know if this might be a possibility. They looked at it. They loved the location. That's the whole reason they moved forward, because they loved the location. And so it ended up going from a client that was just going to lease and expand to purchasing a practice and real estate. Real estate is one of those things where you just don't ever know. So it's like closed mouths don't get fed. That's what I always tell my kids. So it's like, just speak, like say what's there, and you never know, it's like connecting the dots. Like you never know what's going to match up. And another one where I really, thank goodness I like looked at everything, because it was a veterinarian in Santa Fe that was going to purchase this building that was set up perfectly for what they wanted to do with their vet space. It was going to be over $1 million purchase. Right before the purchase agreement was agreed on, I decided to make sure it was zoned for a vet space, and it was not zoned for a vet space. It was like a compound pharmacy type of place. They did like a lot of naturopathic stuff. And yeah, that would have been, if the purchase agreement would
man.
you know what I mean? And then they couldn't do the vet, but nobody really thought twice about it. I mean, it was a commercial building, but there's just, vets are the one thing where it usually needs special zoning, just because, the noise, all of the plumbing and animal stuff. And so I can't remember what the zoning is, but so, and the crazy thing was this client was on a really strict non-compete. Santa Fe's not that big. So they were on a non-compete of, I think, like 6 miles, which is almost all of Santa Fe, I feel like. I don't like on my map where I was like searching, there was not very much. We had already been working with them for a year trying to find a space outside of the non-compete. So when we found that space, it was like, oh my gosh, we found the space. So everyone was just so excited. And then the zoning happened. So that didn't happen. And then luckily there was another space that I found for them. They leased it. They did a 10-year lease in a really great location.
And what a great story about them, because on top of that, then you referred them to us, and we ended up doing their accounting.
Yep.
And then they told us about the bank that that did the funding, that they do funding for like everybody. And
Yeah.
so like even businesses that are hard to fund, that banks may turn their back on, they referred us to this one banker, and we got another deal done through that banker because they did some lending on another business opportunity, which we actually it's funny because we have a meeting with him this week for another.
Funny. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So it's all like when you say connections, right? It's
Yeah.
all about connections and who can help you get your clients.
Yeah. And I think that's like the really awesome thing about working in this industry in New Mexico, especially. I have met so many different professionals, business owners, everything, and everybody is so willing to help the client, whether it's going to bring them business or not. So I can't name one that isn't like, you know what, I can't help them, but this
Mhm.
person can definitely help them. So that's a huge value that, all of us that kind of work together that we bring to our clients, we really are connectors. So when I work with my client, I always tell them, whatever you need, whether it's like your phone system or like tax help or more lending or any construction. I work with a lot of contractors. Like I will know somebody that can help
Mhm.
you. If not directly, that has the connection that you need. So I always hope that people that I work with don't ever get like, I don't know who to call for this. Like just call. Like we're gonna know somebody, you
I
know,
know,
so
right?
closely together. So
You said
And
you
I
do a lot
think
of,
even Rachel working in Houston, she knows more people or connections here in New Mexico than she
thank
does
you.
in Houston.
That's definitely true. When I say like, oh, welcome, I mean welcome to New Mexico.
do you just usually find these connections just, while you're working, or do you actually do other like are you a part of any groups, or do you go out to different social events or anything to meet these people?
Yeah, my sister always teases me. She's like, "What do you do? Like, you just have coffee and wine?" I'm like, "No, I have lunch also."
Yeah.
But I like really just so it started very organically when I first moved here. I just started calling like the big hitters that I heard through the grapevine and
Mhm.
asked to meet with them. So Eric Burgmaier was one of the very first people I met when I moved to Albuquerque. And everyone here is nobody turns down coffee. So we'll just meet with coffee and start building the relationships from there. And my focus really when I'm meeting new vendors and new referral partners is always understanding how I can help them. I just really feel like if I can figure out a way to help a new vendor referral partner that I'm connecting with, I've done my job and it just comes back tenfold. So yeah, I just meet with them, build relationships, and then continue. And it kind of just stems from there. Everyone's like, oh, you should meet this person or you should meet this person. And it just continues to grow from there. And then I also do a lot with CREW, which is Commercial Real Estate Women Association. That's been huge for me. It's a nationwide association, and there's a chapter of that here in New Mexico that's pretty active.
It's amazing how sometimes, it can be a little scary to pick up the phone and call, like some of these big hitters, for example. It's amazing how well it works, and I've found that some of my best clients are usually the most successful, and they're just really easy to work with. Let me ask you this. So far, what would you say is the most rewarding um part of your business?
Startups are definitely the most rewarding. I absolutely love seeing someone taking the leap of faith on themselves and starting their own practice. It's like I live vicariously through them. Like I love it. And so finding the right space for them and you just see how excited and seeing their vision of everything is by far the most rewarding. And I love to be part of all of it. Like I'll show up for everything. The architect is there. I have no reason to be there, but I'm like there because I learn so much and you just it's crazy how these spaces, how people can just imagine them and like seeing it all come to fruition is really, really cool. So that by far is my favorite. And then you see it open, you get to go to the grand openings, and then you just see people living out their dreams. So that for sure is my favorite. And then closely after that is like the expansion piece, because people are thriving, they're growing, they need their new location. So that you kind of see what they're already established and what they're trying to duplicate. That's also very fulfilling.
Hindley Burgmaier Group mostly focuses on dental practices and maybe a few similar types of businesses. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you're doing this obviously beyond Hindley Burgmaier Group. You're a contact of ours that we reach out to for help. So I would imagine you see all different types of businesses for sale that you can lend your expertise to. But you said you mostly focus on like healthcare, right?
Yeah, I focus on healthcare. I can help anybody on the tenant buyer side for sure. The healthcare is where I focus. For whatever reason, everybody kind of like dentists are just a great group. One, there's so many dentists. I'm like when you start working in the field, you're like, oh my God, there's dentists everywhere. Like, do we have enough teeth in Albuquerque to supply this? But we do. So they're all thriving, but it's just they all are, or not all, but it just seems like they're a very future big thinking type of industry. And like the dental industry is just like right now just evolving and changing so much. So it's no longer like that living room setting that we used to have for dental offices. There are still some of that, but now you're walking into these like beautiful day spa looking dental offices, and they're offering so many other services. There's a cosmetic dentistry and implants, and a lot of them are adding in like injections and so many other services. They're making it a whole new industry. So I feel like there's just so much growth and evolution in the dental industry that so many of us are excited to work with them and be part of that.
What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job for you right now?
It's definitely the negotiation piece for sure, because you want to be fair, and you hope that the landlord and selling side is being fair. And so it's just really finding a common spot where both sides are happy. The landlord or the seller is really walking away from the transaction feeling like, okay, I this is what I needed for that space, whether it's a lease or selling it, and for my buyer to know like, okay, I can handle that monthly rent or handle that purchase price and feel good about it, and it's not going to hinder my business. So that's definitely the most challenging piece for me. And you want to stick up for your client as much as you can without damaging the deal. And then it's also explaining to my clients, like, if you're leasing this space from this landlord for 10 years, like you're going into a 10-year relationship with someone. So it's not always beneficial to nitpick and fight for every single thing. Like you've got to pick your battles and choose what's really going to impact your business in the long run. It's very easy to get caught up in egos and pettiness because we all want to win, so sometimes it's like, okay, let's just breathe through the next 24 hours and let's revisit this and really go through and figure out what is the most important piece of this negotiation and make sure that we stick by that, and where is it okay to give a little bit.
Yes. Do you ever have like some clients who are just really stubborn about specific points and you're just like, gosh, if you would just let this go, like we'd have a great deal.
I've been lucky that like I haven't really dealt with a client on my end that has been that way. Usually they're pretty agreeable. Are you thinking of one that was?
Yeah, with your predecessor, there was one, and I don't know if this might be a good question for you, Connie, on how you feel about this, but there was a deal that I did where with your predecessor, he, of course, the bank has to have a release, has to have the landlord sign a release to be the first right to the assets in the practice. The bank gets those rights, right? Because they're lending a significant amount of money on the practice. And this particular landlord was holding it up because he didn't want to sign that. Do you have any experiences with other landlords that have issue with that?
See, on the landlord side, I've dealt with difficult landlords for sure. But my clients are usually pretty easygoing. The hardest for of my clients is finding the correct space. I did work with one client and nothing fit the pocket. It took me close to a year and a half to finally get them into a lease.
Wow.
That, yeah, because they were just so particular about the space and the location that they wanted. But yes, on the flip side, I have dealt with difficult landlords for sure that don't want to give. And like, I mean, right now, commercial real estate, although it's doing well, and in the medical space, I feel like it's doing better than some of the other spaces because dentists cannot do that virtually. Like they can't, that's impossible. Like there's no cleaning teeth virtually. There's no telehealth for dentists and other healthcare providers. They need that office. So I feel like healthcare is probably one of the healthiest pieces of commercial real estate. But if you have a landlord that has big office spaces, and maybe, office spaces for me, like a mental health space could be filled in there, even like internal medicine or foot and ankle, like different types of business can go in there. So when it's an office building, I found sometimes those landlords are a little more in need to fill their space. So they need to charge more for rents. They can find a standalone building that doesn't have that same problem. Sometimes those landlords are a little more just,
Open.
yeah, well, they're wanting more for not
Oh, yeah.
different, you know what I mean? Because they have empty spaces, because the industry has changed. The work from home and the hybrid schedules have left office spaces empty. So I actually just listened to a seminar on the economics of commercial real estate, and it's down like 60% with like office space.
Wow.
Yeah. So you could, like, those landlords that are feeling that, like, they need to charge more for the spaces that they can rent in order to get some kind of balance. For a dentist that's looking to lease or purchase, they've got to also take into consideration the build out piece. So if you're leasing a space and it's not a dental space already, you've got to think about that build out cost. And so when you're leasing it, you're going to put into that build out cost. So I always tell my clients, if you're going to lease a space that you have to build out, like, you need to be there for a good 10 to 15 years to get, because I mean, it's like 250 a square foot to build out a dental space, give or take. So you're looking at easily over $500,000, all the way up to 800,000 that you're going to spend on the build out. So the lease, you need to stay there. And then of course, if you sign a 10-year lease, the landlord's going to contribute that much more. The longer the lease, the more they're going to give. Because for them, that's a 10-year solid paycheck. So that means a lot to them. And that's the other plus side of purchasing a building. You purchase a building, you build it out, you get to sell it for that at the end of the day, whenever that is, or use it for retirement income. If you rent it out after you're done using the space, you have all that built up equity. So of course, purchasing and having that asset and that equity built out, and you could probably talk more to the tax benefits of purchasing versus leasing, but it's a great option once somebody is able and ready to do that.
If I'm a buyer, how do I sign an agreement with you and I pay your commission, or how does your commission get paid?
Yes, so I work completely free for my clients. So I do everything I do for my clients, and it doesn't cost them anything. The way that I make a living is when I negotiate the lease or the purchase price. It just like any real estate transaction, even residential, I get paid from the selling and listing side of the transaction. So it's all negotiated with the landlord and the seller. So
I think that's really important to know, because there's a lot of, dentists that when, we present them with, this is our team, and a member of our team is Connie Aliverto, then they automatically, oh, well, but when we say it's at no cost to you, that's extremely,
Right.
interesting for them.
Mhm.
And of course, they absolutely want to, engage you. So.
Right. Yeah. And one of the, like, anybody that is leasing right now is, I can help them, even if it's just analyzing their current lease that they're in, because they need to know where they stand. So many leases, they're overpaying right now because they signed them like 10 years ago. They're coming up for renewal. Like, if you're paying over, you need to know that so that you can renegotiate and make sure your lease starts over at a fair market value, because it's just escalating year after year. So a lot of times at this point in somebody's lease, whether it was a 5, 7, or 10-year lease, they're paying more than they would be going into a new lease. So
And
if
there could be opportunities there, to
yeah,
purchase, because sometimes leases say, sometimes leases have in there the first right of refusal on
right,
the real estate. And
yeah,
maybe, just maybe, the owner is thinking about selling the real
yeah.
estate at the
And
time that the lease comes up.
that happens all the time. Buildings are purchased, and then there's tenants, and they're like, "Oh my God, if I would have known that it was for sale, I would have purchased this building," because but they're all working in the background. So I can help find that out, negotiate their lease, help them with renewing their new lease, and none of it costs them anything.
When you're selling practices, it's not like you can just broadcast it out to the world. So how do you find buyers typically, how do they hear about you?
Yeah, so a lot of it is referral. I get a lot of referrals from lenders, and I get a lot of referrals from the Burgmaier group. Um, that's a big piece. And then it's, of past clients referring me to their friends and family. Um, so my business is really built and run off of referrals. And I'm just now starting to look into more of getting out there and marketing and building the car name and getting that more recognized in Albuquerque.
You mentioned at the beginning that you did do some residential real estate for a while,
I did,
and you
yeah.
just decided the
Well, I didn't.
commercial was the way to go.
Once I went into commercial, I was like, oh my God, I love this. Because I just love business and like the number side of it. I love how logical commercial real estate is. Like, it's very, my clients, this is like their business move. Like, they are
Gotcha.
ready for this. And so it's like, find the location, find the square footage, make the price right, like negotiate all that, and there we go. Residential is a much more emotional
I was
process,
gonna
I would
say
find. Yeah, and
emotional for
so
sure.
the residential realtors out there, and I do partner with many, and I just know, like, they are much more equipped to do that. Like, when they're good at it, they're amazing at it.
Mhm.
And yeah, for me, I love the business side of commercial real estate. I love how logical it is, and I really enjoy just meeting all these people that are making moves in their industry. There's been so many times I've met people that are actually impacting Albuquerque, like
Yeah,
the
the
one
movers and shakers.
yeah, the one landlord that helped my client, the whole working capital, like everything, um, get that business going. He does a lot of work with the city of Albuquerque and like youth centers. Like, a lot of his spaces are used for things to better Albuquerque. And I'm just like, I love that stuff because every city needs those people. So it's cool to be like behind the scenes and see the things that are happening and knowing those people that are making it happen.
All right, Connie, before we let you go, do you have anything else that you would like to share with the viewers? Anything that's been
Um,
impactful for you?
well, first, thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed this. Hope to continue doing these with you guys. But I guess the main thing is, like, if you don't be afraid to call and ask for help, even if you're like feel like you're steps away from being ready to make a move. I'm still happy to help and start getting them more in line with what needs to take place and getting them in the right spot to do what they need to do, whether in any way. So even if it's just to pick my brain and understand what the first steps are, or yeah, just call me. I'll help you.
I love that attitude. I love that attitude. Where can people find you? Do you have like a website, or do you have like a
LinkedIn, yeah.
LinkedIn?
And I do have a website. I don't know if you can,
We can
yeah,
put all your stuff in the YouTube description.
okay, yeah. I have a website where you can, type in your information. I'll contact you. It'll come straight to my email. And then LinkedIn is where I do any like social media type of stuff. I haven't been on actual social media in a while.
You're not missing much.
Yeah. I like to like focus on myself. I feel like the least I know, like if I'm just in my world, then I'm like going. I'm in my world, nothing else. Yeah. So it's worked for me. It keeps me focused.
Eyes on the prize.
Yeah,
Right?
there we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping into our little show. We do appreciate your time, and
Thank you, guys.
we look forward to continuing the conversation with you. And we'll see you all next time on Getting Down to Business. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, Connie.
Okay,
And
so
cut.
yes, and cut.
Okay, that was cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Connie, for
yeah.
taking the time out today. You look
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Oh, you guys all.
And yeah, it was great. I think it was really great.
Yeah, I'm excited
And
to
once
see
Josh
all.
puts it all together and he cuts
Yeah.
it up and stuff and sends it out to you, I mean, you could even use these little clips and stuff about what you do and what you've done, and just send them to clients and emails and,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Very cool.
So,
Excited.
yeah.
I know I get so wordy though, but do you know
That's
I
good.
don't.
I was like, keep talking, keep talking. So that's content for me.
I could talk to
That's
a
good.
wall, let me tell you. You're like, how do you network? I just talk to people, random people. I don't know. But I'm like joining Toastmasters so I can get really good at public speaking. It's one of my things
Cool.
I want to work on. So when you guys did this, I'm like, all right, there's only one way to really get better, right? Start doing it. So
Yeah, that's a good warm up for Toastmasters. Just talking in front
yeah,
of the camera.
great. Yeah.
Um,
So in the comfort of my own home with 3 people is a great start to public speaking.
Yeah,
we
it is a
don't-
great start, huh?
Yeah.
well,
And 2
I don't-
people that I know pretty well. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
I don't think I heard you say once. I don't
Oh,
think I
good.
Oh,
noticed
she
that.
said,
Oh,
I
did
didn't
I?
notice it. I don't know.
yeah.
I
When we
didn't
want,
hear it a lot.
I just know I get fidgety because I look at myself, and when if I don't look at myself, I'm good. But then you can't help it, and I'm like, oh, I'm like slouching, or yeah, we'll get better.
Cool.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I am so critical
all
about
about
myself too.
it's
I'm
all
like,
about the
ugh,
growth.
cut me out all of
Go
it.
back and watch any of our earlier podcasts. Okay, like we're not
Great.
professionals.
It's the growth, right?
Mhm.
But at least I had a beautiful backdrop, thank goodness.
I know, that is beautiful. Well, oh my goodness.
All
What?
right, I'll let you guys go. And Josh, I will email you my website.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Yay, bye.
All right. Thanks.
We hope you found this episode of Getting Down to Business informative and educational. Don't forget to follow us for more weekly content as we help dental practice owners navigate the tough landscape of owning and running a successful practice. Join us next week on the call as we continue to dive deep into relevant topics with more special guests. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Getting Down to Business.